Hi there, students. Hobson's choice. Okay, Hobson's choice is a situation where apparently you are being offered the opportunity to choose, but there is only one thing to choose. So in the end, you have to either take it or leave it. So it's no real choice at all. Okay, so you don't have the opportunity to choose anything. Either you take this or you don't take this.
Welcome, fellow plebs. My name is Sean, and this is
Tribunus Plebis.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 15 of the Tribunus Plebis podcast. Good to have you back. So first, let's address the obvious big news since the last episode. The president got COVID, and he was hospitalized, then released, and he's being insane again. All right, and now let's move on to things that are more important. In an interesting move, President Trump, quote-unquote, ordered Congress, and by that I mean he told Senate Republicans to stop negotiating on a new COVID relief bill and to focus all of their energy on confirming the psycho-religious nut that he nominated to the Supreme Court. Basically, the president told Congress to make sure that the citizens of this country get no help as they struggle within the disaster that his administration created in this country. What Trump is doing is holding any form of help for the people of this country hostage as a way of trying to force or at least encourage those same people to vote for him in the coming election. And as usual, Republican voters say yeehaw and tell themselves that Trump is the best thing ever. And the Democratic voters say boo-hoo and tell themselves that Trump is the worst thing ever. And to be fair, he kind of is the worst thing ever. And the outcry is that Trump is withholding money and trying to buy votes. And it's true, he is. But the Republicans have refused to even negotiate on a new relief bill before. Why? Largely the same reason, to get reelected. But they also want to deny the Democrat-controlled House from having the ability to say that they got us something. Anything. Yet where's that new Democrat-sponsored bill to help out? After all, they control the House, right? It never got written, did it? Why not? Why not if they wanted to help us? Well, the Democrats didn't do it because they didn't want to give Trump and the Republicans a win so close to the election. Yay us, right? And right now, the two sides, such as the phrase two sides even means in our current political climate, are supposedly negotiating for relief. They have about 3 weeks from when I am recording this to get it done and passed and have Trump sign it, which he is saying he will refuse to do. And the likelihood of a Senate supermajority to override a presidential veto is pretty damn low right now. Again, yay us. Both of these parties are playing politics with the lives of those most affected by this disease and the resulting restrictions. The senators are getting paid. They have insurance. They are not going to be evicted soon. Oh, and their corporate owners are flooding the party accounts with straight cash, man. And by straight cash, I mean bribes. These are disgusting people from the House to the Senate right up to the White House. They made this mess, regardless of whether it was the worst response or the best. They did it. They need to fix it. They made it. They need to help people get through it. And now, for the big idea segment, I want to talk about the idea of choice as freedom and what it means and why I don't buy it. And I'm going to use Medicare for all here, both as a stand-in for a single-payer system and as the frame for my argument. Partly because I believe that Medicare for all is a very good thing to implement, but also because it just honestly fits pretty well with what I'm going to argue. So, what exactly is it we are chasing when we talk about choice? Is it freedom? Because freedom is, in fact, exactly what the establishment politicians are pushing at us when they talk about choice. For them, being able to choose between multiple options equals freedom. This idea seems to many to be intuitively correct on its face. If we can choose between 12 different brands of running shoes, then that presents more freedom than being forced to buy the one brand on the shelf. We even have an all-encompassing term for this: freedom of choice. Choice is supposed to confer upon us freedom, self-determination, and personal sovereignty. I am going to make the argument that choice, especially in the context of our health insurance system, does not always equal freedom, and that the very concept of choice itself, as we normally understand it, is quite often nothing more than a myth. The premise that choice is somehow less than great can be a little disconcerting. I felt uncomfortable every time I thought about it myself. There was like this harsh dissonance in my head for a while as I worked this out. Still, my intuition has been that choice, in the sense of providing freedom, was either flat wrong or at least imperfect. This has been bothering me for a few years, but I could never quite express what my gut was telling me. Hell, I still might not do it justice, or I might even end up being completely and utterly wrong. A lot of very smart people would be rolling in their graves right now if they saw this. People like Hayek or Friedman probably are spinning in their graves. And good, they should. They sucked. The other angle of attack on this choice as freedom rhetoric is that a lack or inability to choose makes you less free. You are effectively constrained and fettered. Once you have accepted that more choice equals freedom and less choice equals less freedom, then what follows is that more choice is better and less choice is worse. But it does not always work this way. How can more choice be bad? How can less choice or lack of choice be good? Have you ever been to a restaurant with a one-page menu? You pick one item from each section. Your choices are from, 2 apps, 3 entrees, and 2 desserts. And that's it. You pick, you eat. Now think about that book you get when you go somewhere like Cheesecake Factory, and you are flipping back and forth through 20 pages of different foods for 20, 30 minutes. And you finally pick something, but you're just actually overwhelmed by having to choose from so many options. You just kind of pick something because you have to, almost in exasperation by the time the choice is made, because you had to pick something, right? And there is a whole lot that goes into this, but huge amounts of choices actually harms us emotionally. There's a book by Barry Schwartz called The Paradox of Choice: Why More is Less, which details this phenomena. In the book, there is talk about maximizers and satisfiers. Maximizers study, weigh things out, find the best quality versus value, and so on. Satisfiers are more likely to just grab something and hope for the best. Maximizers, despite spending more time figuring out the best choice, are usually the least satisfied after the purchase is made. And satisfiers, those who are more impulsive, are, more satisfied with their purchases, but they suffer because of the quality and value issues. There is no perfect compromise either. It's mostly just luck when you get down to it, which is a stressful bit of life in and of itself. There's a lot more to Schwartz's work. That's just a quick, ugly summary. But if you're interested, you can just Google Barry Schwartz and you can find a bunch of articles, academic studies, commentary, and of course, the book that he wrote. And as we move on, let's take a look at television. At one point, we had 3 choices: ABC, NBC, and CBS. You could watch only one at a time, and the choice was typically pretty easy. You could watch the sitcom, the cop show, or the mystery show. And it was all free once you owned the television. Then we had cable, and that came with a choice of 25 channels, then 100, then even more. And then came all the hack comedy about, I have 200 channels but nothing to watch. And that joke is, or at least was, funny, as the saying goes, because it is so true. Too many choices is actually bad for us psychologically. Now we have networks, cable, and at least 12 major streaming services. The content has been repeatedly fractured and segregated by media corporations, which hold the rights to the different shows and movies. We have more choices here as well, but we are less well off. We can pay far more to get everything, or pay a little more to get a lot less. And yes, I know I left out a few steps in the evolution of television and entertainment, but I think the argument still holds. And this sort of choice and value paradox is becoming ever more common in more areas. So let's talk about choice in healthcare and insurance.
Insurance companies want to provide insurance to people who don't need it. That's how they make money. The public option will be used by those who really need care. Dr. Dawn Berwick.
The concept of choice in healthcare is particularly troublesome because of the real-world implications of it. For a wild example, let's just think about if a doctor holds a gun to a child's head and demands that you sign a contract which hands over 2 full years of pre-tax wages to him, or he pulls the trigger. You have a choice. And I'll go ahead and assume that you aren't a complete psychopath and say you sign the contract. This situation, to too many people, constitutes freedom. There are actually well-known free market economists out there who will tell you that this choice means you have freedom. After all, you had a choice. You could let your kid be killed or pay up, and you made a decision. To these people, that makes you free. Now listen, that example is, hopefully obviously, hyperbole. But now imagine that that boy is now laid out on a surgical bed and he is struggling to breathe. Your son has an issue with his chest. He needs an emergency surgery. The doctor is looming over the kid at the ready, a scalpel in his hand glinting brightly under the surgical lights. Now a nurse approaches you with a clipboard. On the clipboard is a yellow sheet of paper. The top half is a consent form to do the surgery, and the bottom half is an estimate of cost. The cost is equal to 2 years of your pre-tax wages. You sign, or the surgery won't happen and the child dies. How is this so-called choice any different than the gun scenario? Pay or your kid dies. Does anyone actually think that this is freedom of any meaningful variety? Now, okay, you're right. I get it. This isn't how an emergency like this would actually play out. In real life, the doctors would absolutely save that child's life, no questions asked. They would do their job to the best of their abilities, regardless of anything else, and least of all whether you had a suitcase full of cash ready. So they would save that kid's life. In real life, it wouldn't be until after the surgery, the following month, when the family would get that bill, and they would probably go bankrupt a few months later. I was just trying to illustrate a point. Please forgive me. Decisions like this, albeit usually of less consequence, are happening all over the country every single day. A lot of us have heard about mothers parked outside of emergency rooms with their children in their cars, desperately hoping that a potentially deadly fever will break before they are forced to bring them through those glass sliding doors and into certain financial doom. That mother is not free, nor is the child. Or how about this one? A bee stings you, your throat is closing up, a passerby calls an ambulance, and they arrive. You are turning purple and gasping for air. Your vision begins to tunnel as the paramedic runs over to you with an EpiPen and a credit card reader. The ambulance costs $3,000 and the EpiPen costs $800. Add on the $20 service charge and you'll be charged $38.20. Swipe or die, baby.
When you're staring up at someone from the gurney, you have no inclination to be a savvy consumer. You have no power, only hope. From the book America's Bitter Pill, Money, Politics, Backroom Deals, and the Fight to Fix Our Broken Healthcare System by Stephen Brill.
The crux of the matter here is that these people are being put into position to make these awful choices, and they should not have to make them at all. There is no good reason for any of this to be structured this way. The only reason it is this way is because of greed and ideology. The system itself and the machinations of that system are all here because of choices that have been made. Most of those choices haven't been bought and paid for by the insurance companies and private hospital industries. We, as a country, are forced into this position because a very powerful group of people have decided that this is the best for themselves. They have chosen to propagandize choice as freedom to the masses, while they simultaneously enjoy actual freedom because they do not have to make any of these choices that they force upon us. No millionaire has ever not gone to the dentist because a $50 copay was not in the budget. Millionaires do not sit in emergency rooms for hours with pneumonia because they couldn't afford to get treatment at the Doctor's Express last week, all the while stressing out about the bill that they know will be coming and which they will not be able to pay. Millionaires just pay a doctor to swing by the house. The wealthy aren't making themselves more free with these awful choices. They are just more free because they are more wealthy. Poor people and lower middle class folks such as myself and probably whoever is listening to this are stuck with these terrible choices. Stay sick or go deeply into debt, even with insurance. Yay choices, am I right? Do you want to keep that fatal tumor or spend the rest of your life having your paychecks garnished and living paycheck to paycheck eating cat food? Hey, it's a choice, and that means that you are free. And into this chasm of existential pain steps the politician. On the one hand, you have people like Bernie Sanders with a bill called Medicare for All, a sweeping single-payer health plan that would cover every American head to toe, birth to coffin, and all free at the point of service. Now notice I didn't just say free. I note that because there's at least one of you who heard that last sentence and said to nobody in particular, "Nothing is free, bro." Yes, the whole thing would be funded by the government and taxes. Now, any libertarian still listening should probably take a moment here, sit down, and catch your breath. I know it's hard. Now, on the other hand, you have politicians like Joe Biden. They bring options and choices with them. They say that it's better to be able to choose which insurance company you should go with. They often support a form of Medicare for all those who want it, which just means that Medicare would be a choice, which you would be free to make, right alongside private insurance. And adding this public option is bad because insurance companies would create their plans in such a way as to shunt the permanently disabled, those of us who suffer from lifelong illnesses, and those diagnosed with acute diseases and sicknesses onto the public option. Then they will say, look how expensive the average care is for those on the public option. Look how cheap the private option is. All the while leaving it out that they intentionally designed it this way to trick us back into the private insurance healthcare prison. Biden himself is dead set on keeping the Affordable Care Act known as Obamacare. He talks about choice and options and even the ever-present access to insurance, where access just means really cheap, really shitty insurance that won't save you when you need it because it doesn't cover anything at all. These people then claim that this will reduce healthcare costs because of some magic hand-waving market force pseudoscience bullshit. Meanwhile, anybody who doesn't have a skull full of blue slushy knows that markets don't work like this for healthcare because it is an inelastic demand. These ghouls usually then claim that Americans are happy with their insurance and that Medicare for All would quote-unquote force people to lose their insurance. And that last part is only partially true. Everyone would get better insurance. And I can't be the only one who wonders why they never finish the sentence with that. To these people, choice is better. In their ideology, that means more freedom. Another claim they make is that people would not be able to keep their doctors. This is an issue that a lot of people worry about as they tend to like going to the same physician as much as possible. And it makes a lot of sense too. But private work-provided insurance does no better, and perhaps worse in this regard than single payer. Just this past fall, it was announced that my work was changing insurers. Personally, this doesn't mean a lot to me other than the cost went up and the fact that the coverage got worse. because of course these things suck more, right? And did I have a choice in that? No. It also didn't mean a whole lot to me because I don't have a personal doctor that I always go to. So I checked around the shop. Several coworkers are having to change family doctors because they were forced to lose their insurance and their doctors because of private work-provided insurance. Not one of them had or has any reasonable choice in the matter. Now, some wingnuts out there might say, of course they have a choice. They can quit. Yeah, I mean, okay, in the strictest sense, that is a choice. But is it really freedom? Hell, they can't even guarantee that they would get their doctor back. They would have to find a job that carries insurance that particular doctor accepted again. Could they make as much money there? Get acceptable hours, vacation time? What if that job then switched to the same insurance my current job did, and they lose their doctor again 6 months later? I suppose they could quit again, right? This so-called freedom kicks so much ass, doesn't it? And how this ties into the tyranny of so-called choice in our lives is through the concept of autonomy and freedom. Having your health tied to our work reduces our freedom, no matter how many individual plans the insurance company chosen by our employers offers. And it is limited precisely because it is tied to employment, and precisely because the employer makes the choice of insurer, and precisely because the insurer formulates the plans with the employer. If we can't freely change jobs or even be unemployed and be guaranteed to remain fully insured, then where is this so-called freedom that all of this quote-unquote choice is supposed to grant me? Another thing to always keep in mind when you encounter a politician who is either against universal health care or is claiming to support it but with a choice or option attached, they're doing this because universal health care is directly against the wishes of their millionaire and billionaire insurance, pharma, and healthcare donors. These politicians are working for these donors, not us. The essential problem with these option, or for everybody who wants it in choice plans, is that they purposefully will not work. They're designed to fail. These options and choices and whatnot all leave footholds and back doors for the insurance lobby to begin destroying the bill from within via their lobbying efforts. When it comes to providing universal health care, you are either all in or it will fail. The technical complications of these plans are intentional roadblocks to what is a very simple, very moral, and very correct action: to cover everybody for everything medical. This sort of half-assed choice plan was tried before. It was called the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, and it failed because the Obama administration went with buy-ins and options and choices. As soon as the ACA passed, it fell under constant undermining attack, and its weaknesses, all left there on purpose by the corporate-controlled politicians, were exposed, exploited, and the act itself heavily weakened. The pressure that work-provided insurance exerts on the American population is immense. Healthcare benefits are the second biggest issue, wages being the first, in new job considerations. It can very easily become the most important if a family member has a health issue. In fact, health insurance is one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people work at all, even some who should otherwise be retired or on disability of some sort. I worked at a company with two men in their 70s, one 78 when I left, who were still working because their wives needed extra care that Medicaid wouldn't cover. These guys were being forced to work until they simply couldn't, or either they or their wives died. That's how important it is. That's how cruel this system is. That's how terrifying it is to not have it. We willingly sign up to do the worst things that most of us will do in our lives just so that we might not die young and instead might die old and broke. Now factor in job security. Your job and the insurance you need it for can be gone in a snap. Outsourcing, automation, and get this one, restructuring of the human capital sector. And by this they mean the mass firings of employees for cost savings to eke out just another 0.1% on the profit margin. This sick cruelty can rob you of your basic right to health and life itself. And we can also look at the fissuring of the workforce, the shift from full-time benefit-receiving jobs for benefit-free independent contractors, third-party contractors, and gig workers, which deprives even more workers of health insurance. Private work-provided insurance isn't so much a benefit as it is a ball and chain which restricts the freedom so many insisted that it would grant. The only way to effectively sever this weighted ball from our ankle shackles is to cleave the connection between work and healthcare. When we are presented with an assortment of healthcare plans, each one of them containing just enough variation to differentiate them from each other, it is only so that the powers that be can call the resulting disaster a choice. Then they have the nerve to claim that this so-called choice will set us free. The result of this sort of insanity is that we are left with no real choice at all, other than a sort of Hobson's choice. That is a take it or leave it situation. One option is to accept that we need to choose between a series of plans which will systematically endeavor to extract from us every bit of wealth that they can, all the while denying us services, denying us care, and doing their damnedest to trade our very health for profit margin. They will drive you into bankruptcy, a nervous breakdown, barely keep you alive, and then drop you in a piss-scented nursing home until you die. These insurance companies are literally trying to financially break you and not take care of you. That's their job. That's what they do. They are pure evil. The other option which is presented to us is to not have insurance at all. This option just sends us to the piss-scented nursing home about 10 steps quicker because we go broke a lot sooner. There really is no choice here at all, let alone freedom. The rhetoric is that people looking for health insurance are customers. However, when you present to your customers a choice like is outlined above, they aren't really customers. They are prisoners to a system. The insurance industry and the politicians they have bought and paid for aren't giving us a choice. They are giving us an illusion of choice. No matter which choices we make, the results continually funnel us to a predetermined, inexorable fate. The insurance companies taking our savings and tossing us into the aforementioned piss-scented nursing home. The opening to this choose-your-own-adventure funnel is wide and full of choices, but the direction leads one way. It rapidly and inexorably narrows into a tunnel where all the choices lead to profit for them and misery for you. And the exit of this funnel, it leads directly into a pauper's coffin and a family with no inheritance. Because these people are vampires. If we can free people of this illusion of choice and provide universal health care that is free at the point of service, then we can offer these people more freedom than any selection of private insurance ever will. No longer will we be tied to horrible jobs for fear of quitting and losing our insurance. Single mothers with kids will no longer be forced to deal with bosses and co-workers who harass them because they are terrified to risk losing their job if they speak out and losing insurance for their children. It is absolutely clear that private insurance with their high deductibles, copays, and restrictive insurance networks, which limit the doctors we can visit, make us less free. If we can't afford to visit the doctor, what is even the point of having insurance if we suffer instead of getting treatment? If we absolutely must go to the hospital and our insurance pays 40% of a huge bill, strapping us with massive debt, what really is the point of that insurance if we survive but end up broke in a nursing home? How absolutely sick must a person be to call any of these so-called choices freedom? The freedom presented by a Medicare for all type system is a different freedom than the freedom which choice rhetoric promises. To put it plainly, Medicare for all promises actual freedom, while at the same time removing choices from our lives. Freedom to move freely through life without workplace oppression, the tyranny of massive medical bills, bankruptcy, and the fear that currently comes with private insurance. Freedom to change jobs, quit jobs, or even to go into business for ourselves. Medicare for all promises the freedom that choices of insurance could never provide. A freedom to actually do things and live our best lives. Medicare for all is certainly about healthcare and the well-being of the citizenry, but it is important for another reason as well. Medicare for all promises nothing less than liberty itself. After all, without our health, our very lives themselves, how can we ever truly be said to be free?